Here is a number that should stop you cold. According to research from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, nearly half of American retirees are at risk of running short of money at some point during their retirement. Not a fringe group, not people who made terrible decisions. Nearly half. Regular people who saved, who planned, who did what they were supposed to do, and who are still quietly on a path toward financial shortfall. And here's what makes it even more alarming. Most of them have no idea. They look at their account balance today and it looks fine. It looks comfortable. It looks like enough. But underneath the surface, four invisible forces are quietly draining that account faster than any of them realize. And by the time most people notice, by the time the account statements start telling a different story, the window to fix it has already closed. Today we are going to name those four forces. We are going to show you exactly how they work, what they cost in real dollars, and most importantly, what you can do right now to stop them before they do permanent damage to your retirement. Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Advice. If you are retired or approaching retirement, this is one of the most important videos I have made on this channel, because what I am about to share with you is not doom and gloom. It is not designed to scare you. It is designed to give you the awareness and the tools to protect the retirement you worked your entire life to build. So let's get into it. Let's start with something that almost nobody in the financial world talks about honestly: the false sense of security that comes with having a large account balance at retirement. Here is what happens. You spend 30 or 40 years accumulating, saving every month, watching the account grow, and then you retire with, let's say, $800,000 or $1 million. And it feels like a lot, because compared to where you started, it is a lot. You remember the days when you had $50,000 saved, or $200,000, and now you have 10 or 20 times that. So it feels safe. It feels like it will last forever. But here is the problem. That account balance is not a static number. It is not sitting in a vault somewhere, untouched and protected. It is a living, breathing financial entity that is being pulled in multiple directions simultaneously, every single day of your retirement. And most retirees only track one side of the equation: how much they are spending. They do not fully account for all the forces that are quietly shrinking the purchasing power and longevity of that account at the same time. Think of your retirement portfolio like a bathtub full of water. You can see the water level. You can see how much is in there. And you are carefully monitoring how much you drain out each month with your living expenses. But what you might not notice are four separate leaks in the bottom of that tub, small at first, easy to miss, that are draining the water faster than your monthly spending alone ever could. Those four leaks are inflation, healthcare costs, taxes, and withdrawal sequencing. And today we are going to look at each one in detail, because understanding them is the first step to plugging them. Let's start with inflation, because this is the most underestimated threat in all of retirement planning, and it is the one that works the slowest and does the most damage. Here is the core problem. When most people think about their retirement budget, they think about what things cost today. My groceries cost this much, my utilities cost this much, my insurance costs this much. And they build their retirement income plan around today's prices. But retirement is not today. Retirement is 20, 25, sometimes 30 years of tomorrows, and prices do not stay the same. Let's look at the math. At a modest 3% annual inflation rate, which is actually below the historical average, the cost of living doubles roughly every 24 years. Which means if you retire at 65 and live to 89, everything you buy will cost approximately twice as much at the end of your retirement as it does at the beginning. Put that in concrete terms. If your monthly expenses are $5,000 today at age 65, inflation at 3% means those same expenses will cost approximately $7,200 per month by age 75, and approximately $10,400 per month by age 85. Your lifestyle has not changed. You are buying the same groceries, paying the same utilities, living in the same home. But the dollars required to fund that lifestyle have more than doubled. Now here's where it gets really dangerous for retirees. Social Security does provide a cost of living adjustment, a COLA, each year. But that COLA is tied to the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners, which does not perfectly track the spending patterns of retirees. Healthcare, housing, and services, the things retirees spend the most on, tend to inflate faster than the general CPI, which means Social Security's annual increases frequently lag behind the actual cost increases retirees experience. And if your portfolio is invested too conservatively, all bonds, all CDs, all cash, it may not be growing fast enough to keep pace with inflation either, which means you are being squeezed from both sides. Your expenses are rising, and your portfolio's purchasing power is shrinking. Research from Fidelity estimates that a retired couple today will need to plan for their expenses to increase by between 50 and 100% over a 25-year retirement purely due to inflation. That is not a crisis scenario. That is the baseline expectation. And yet the majority of retirees do not factor anything close to this into their long-term income planning. The fix for inflation is not complicated, but it requires intentional action. Your portfolio must include a meaningful allocation to growth assets, stocks, and equity funds, even in retirement. Not because you are trying to get rich, but because growth is the only reliable long-term hedge against inflation. A portfolio that is 100% bonds or cash is a portfolio that is losing purchasing power every single year. And over a 25-year retirement, that loss compounds into a retirement-ending problem. Now let's talk about the leak that blindsides more retirees than any other: healthcare costs. Fidelity's annual retirement healthcare cost estimate, one of the most widely cited in the financial planning industry, projects that the average retired couple aged 65 today will need approximately $315,000 in today's dollars to cover healthcare expenses throughout retirement. And that number does not include long-term care. That is just routine healthcare: premiums, deductibles, copays, prescriptions, dental, vision. $315,000 set aside just for healthcare, on top of everything else. Now, most retirees, when they hear this number, assume Medicare covers most of it. And Medicare does cover a significant portion of healthcare costs. But Medicare is not free. Medicare Part B has monthly premiums. Medicare Part D, prescription drug coverage, has premiums and cost sharing. And standard Medicare does not cover dental, vision, hearing, or most long-term care at all. Let's talk about what this actually looks like month to month for a typical retiree. Medicare Part B premiums in 2026 run approximately $185 per month per person, so $370 per month for a couple. Add a Medicare supplement or Medigap policy to cover the gaps, another $150 to $300 per person per month. Add Part D for prescriptions, another $50 to $100 per person. Before you have paid a single copay or filled a single prescription, a retired couple is spending $700 to $1,000 per month on healthcare premiums alone. And that is before we even address the elephant in the room: long-term care. Research from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimates that approximately 70% of people who reach age 65 will need some form of long-term care during their lifetime. The median annual cost of a private room in a nursing facility currently exceeds $100,000 per year. A home health aide, for someone who wants to stay at home, costs between $50,000 and $70,000 per year. These are not worst-case scenarios. These are median costs for services that the majority of retirees will need at some point. And here is what makes this so devastating to retirement plans. Long-term care costs are not gradual. They do not creep up slowly over years. They arrive suddenly, triggered by a health event, a fall, a diagnosis, and they arrive at full force. A retiree who needs 2 years of memory care at $90,000 per year has just experienced a $180,000 unplanned expense, on top of all their regular retirement costs, on top of inflation, on top of everything else. The strategy here has two parts. First, do not under-budget for healthcare in your retirement income plan. Budget at least $500 to $700 per month per person for healthcare-related costs, and revisit that number every year as premiums change. Second, seriously evaluate long-term care insurance or a hybrid life insurance policy with a long-term care rider while you are still healthy enough to qualify for reasonable premiums. Once a significant health event occurs, coverage becomes exponentially more expensive or unavailable entirely. This is a decision that rewards acting early. The third leak is one that shocks a lot of retirees when they finally face it. Because many people spend their entire working career building their retirement savings in traditional 401ks and traditional IRAs. They watched those accounts grow tax-deferred for decades. And they assumed that in retirement, when they are no longer earning a big salary, their tax burden would be low. For some retirees, that is true. But for many, particularly those with large traditional IRA or 401k balances, retirement becomes one of the highest tax periods of their entire life. And here is why. Every dollar you withdraw from a traditional IRA or 401k in retirement is taxed as ordinary income, not capital gains rates, ordinary income rates, which can be 22%, 24%, or even higher, depending on how much you withdraw and what other income you have. And unlike during your working years, you do not get to choose whether to take that income. Because at age 73, the IRS requires you to start taking required minimum distributions, RMDs, from your traditional retirement accounts, whether you need the money or not. Here's what that looks like in practice. A retiree with $1.2 million in a traditional IRA at age 73 faces an RMD of roughly $46,000 in that first year, calculated by dividing the account balance by the IRS life expectancy factor. That $46,000 is added to their taxable income. If they also have $24,000 in Social Security income, their total taxable income could easily push them into the 22% or 24% bracket. And as the account grows, or fails to shrink fast enough, RMDs grow too. Some retirees in their late 70s and 80s find themselves with RMDs so large that a significant portion of their Social Security benefit becomes taxable. Up to 85% of Social Security income can be subject to federal income tax, depending on your combined income. And then there is the Medicare surcharge issue, called IRMA. If your income in retirement exceeds certain thresholds, which are not particularly high, your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums increase significantly. A large RMD in 1 year can trigger a Medicare surcharge the following year that costs a couple thousands of additional dollars in premiums. This is a tax leak that most retirees do not see coming until the bill arrives. The strategy here is what planners call tax diversification. The goal is to have money in 3 types of accounts: taxable brokerage accounts, traditional tax-deferred accounts, and Roth tax-free accounts, so that in retirement, you have flexibility to pull income from whichever source creates the lowest tax bill in any given year. If you have most of your retirement savings in traditional accounts, the best time to start converting some of that to Roth is in the years before RMDs begin, taking advantage of lower income years to pay tax now at a lower rate, rather than being forced to pay at a higher rate later. This is called a Roth conversion strategy, and it is one of the most powerful tax planning tools available to retirees. The fourth leak is the most technical, but it might be the most important, and it goes by a name you may have heard: sequence of returns risk. Here's how it works. When you are in retirement and withdrawing money from your portfolio, the order in which market returns occur matters enormously, far more than the average return over time. A bad sequence of returns early in retirement can permanently cripple a portfolio, even if the long-term average return is perfectly acceptable. Let me show you this with 2 simple scenarios. Both retirees have $1 million at retirement. Both experience exactly the same average annual return of 5% over 20 years. Both withdraw $50,000 per year. The only difference is the order of the returns. Retiree A experiences good returns in the early years and bad returns later. Her portfolio survives comfortably. After 20 years, she still has money remaining. Retiree B experiences the same returns, but in reverse order. Bad years first, good years later. Her portfolio runs out of money in year 16, 4 years before retiree A's identical average return portfolio would have. Same average return, same withdrawal amount, different sequence, completely different outcome. One retiree is financially comfortable. The other runs out of money at 81. This is why a stock market crash in the first 3 to 5 years of retirement is so uniquely dangerous. When markets drop and you are simultaneously withdrawing money, you are selling shares at depressed prices to fund your living expenses. Those shares are permanently gone. They cannot participate in the eventual recovery. So when markets do recover, your portfolio is starting from a permanently smaller base, and it may never fully catch up. Research from Vanguard and Morningstar shows that the first decade of retirement is by far the most financially consequential. Portfolios that survive the first 10 years with reasonable balances intact almost always go the distance. Portfolios that get hit hard in the first 5 years, with significant withdrawals compounding the damage, are the ones that run out. The solution is a combination of 3 things. First, maintain a cash or short-term bond buffer of 1 to 2 years of living expenses that you draw from during market downturns instead of selling equities. This breaks the forced selling cycle. Second, be flexible with your withdrawals. In bad market years, reduce discretionary spending by 10 or 15% if possible. Even modest flexibility dramatically improves portfolio survival rates, according to Morningstar research. Third, do not retire with an overly aggressive withdrawal rate. Every percentage point above 4% meaningfully increases your exposure to sequence risk. If your plan requires a 6 or 7% withdrawal rate to work, it is not a plan. It is a gamble. So let's bring it all together, because I want to leave you with something clear, actionable, and genuinely useful. The 4 leaks draining retirement portfolios faster than most retirees realize are inflation, healthcare costs, taxes, and withdrawal sequencing. None of them are catastrophic on their own, but together, unaddressed and unplanned for, They form a retirement-ending combination that is quietly affecting nearly half of American retirees right now. The good news is that every single one of these leaks has a solution. Inflation is addressed by maintaining meaningful growth exposure in your portfolio, even in retirement. Healthcare costs are addressed by honest budgeting, proper Medicare planning, and early consideration of long-term care coverage. Taxes are addressed by building account type diversity and using Roth conversion strategies before RMDs force your hand. And sequence of returns risk is addressed by maintaining a cash buffer, staying flexible with withdrawals, and keeping your withdrawal rate sustainable from day one. None of these strategies require you to be a financial genius. None of them require dramatic changes to how you live. They require awareness, planning, and a willingness to look honestly at your retirement picture. Not just the account balance, but all four of the forces working against it. Here's the homework I want to give you this week. Go through each of the 4 leaks and ask yourself, have I planned for this specifically? Not generally, specifically. Do I have a healthcare budget that accounts for real premium costs? Do I know what my RMDs will look like at 73? Do I have a cash buffer to protect against sequence risk? Do I have enough growth in my portfolio to fight inflation over 20 years? If the answer to any of those questions is no, that is your starting point. That is where your attention needs to go right now. Because the best time to plug a leak is before the water is gone. I want to hear from you. Which of these 4 leaks surprised you the most? Which one are you most concerned about in your own retirement? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and I would love to help you think through your specific situation. If this video gave you value, please give it a like and share it with someone you know who is retired or planning to retire soon. It might be the most important financial conversation they have this year. Subscribe to Life Advice for a new video every single week. I will see you in the next one. Take care.